Hey, good morning, everybody. This is the Freedom System, and you've got Rick Jansen in Denver and Lee Jennings in Seattle. This is free real estate coaching, a free mastermind. Good morning, Lee.
Good morning. How's it going?
Awesome, man. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm
I
good.
heard you had through the grapevine, which is just us talking before the show. I heard you had a crazy day yesterday.
Yeah, yeah. I actually was on the phone yesterday in the morning, my normal 8 to 11, and then I was on the phone Sunday as well for a little while. And I set 5 preview appointments, two yesterday, 2 today, 1 tomorrow, and then I'll obviously be on the phone after this. And I went to 2 yesterday, and they were both the ones I went to yesterday were good. They were both viable. One is a condo in a really very desirable part of Seattle. Like, it's Kirkland, if you know where that is. It's on
Oh
the
yeah.
east side,
Oh yeah.
across the water. Very Tony fancy location. This is a 1 bedroom, but it has an incredible view of Lake Washington. And it's like a top floor 1 bedroom condo, older building, but really a nice property. And kind of hit it off with a seller. They moved out of state, and doesn't make sense for them to keep it. It's currently rented. The tenant's willing to be out in March, which is coming up obviously very quickly. And so had good rapport with him. There was some things I had to overcome. He doesn't really like EXP, which is kind of funny. He's been solicited by EXP agents a lot, and he has another home to sell here that I think he's doing something else with. But anyway, we talked for a while, and it's a great property. It's a good price point, and so anyway, I went on that one, and then I went on another one. I went and looked at a really large custom home in Bellevue, and a really nice part of Bellevue, very fancy. That one needs a lot of work. Like, they've done a lot of work to it. I think he's put like $1 million into it, but it needs a lot more to be a finished product. But I built rapport with the seller. I walked the property, got an idea of what needs to happen. I suggested that I could do a Facebook Live open house for him, because what he's looking for is a buyer who can come in and make the alterations and the changes, which I hear this a lot, and it's not usually a great strategy. But
No, it's not. I agree. I had to coach my client on that on Sunday. The same thing.
Yeah, and I mean, the house is really not showable right now. It's just got all kinds of problems and issues. And I mean, it's a great property and a great location, but the house itself, like, he's asking people to look past a lot, and he's also asking the buyer to make all these decisions, which is not realistic in my humble opinion. But I still built rapport with him. I still said I was willing to do a Facebook Live open. What I think that's going to turn into is he's not going to be ready to list it probably until at least March or April at the earliest. And so it's just something where I'm going to have to touch him and keep up in contact, maybe do the Facebook Live open. I probably actually would get some traffic on that, just because of the location and the price. It's a huge build out, and it's a really beautiful custom home. It just, the interior is basically going to be gutted, and that's challenging. People aren't going to look past that. But
so there are like already 3 or 4 things we can unpack for 2 hours, right? So one you talked about, hey, I was on the phone for 3 hours. The second is you had 5 previews. The third is, building rapport. The fourth is Facebook Live open houses. All these things are going to be new to people, right? And so we've talked about some of them on some of our other shows. But kind of the questions that start coming up are, okay, who did you call? How did you call them? What did you say on the phone? When you called for 3 hours, how many people did you call? Did you have a robot dialer? Did you have a script you were reading? How did you handle your objections? Did you put them into a CRM? When you go on a preview, what do you say? What do you bring? Did you send a pre-listing package? Like, people don't realize, like, when you're building a business and you're getting skilled up in marketing and sales, lead generation is what we're talking about right now. So what are those things do you want to unpack today, Lee?
So, I mean, the big one that I always have that I've had challenges with since I started, and I still have challenges with it. In fact, I talked to my coach yesterday morning, I was in the middle of my prospecting session, and I texted him. I was like, dude, I need to talk to you. And so he called me right away, which is great. And the biggest challenge, and I think the challenge that a lot of people face, especially when you're newer in the business, is who do I call? Like, who am I calling, and why am I calling them? I mean, you better know more than they do, because they're not going to lead you there. they're the consumer on some level. And so yesterday I was calling my lead types expired for sell by owner. All the previews I set, I think yesterday were those 2 lead types. I mean, there's a couple expireds, a couple for sell by owners. And
were these, Lee, were there these new expireds, old expireds? Were they 6 month to a year old? Were you prospecting deep? Were you prospecting new?
These were all newish. I had a backlog. Like I was involved. I was dealing with some personal things last week, and I wasn't, on the phone all week. And so, or part of the week. And so these are backlog that I had to get through, and they were newer, like probably new within 10 days.
Okay. And then one other thing, I'm going to keep interrupting you because I'm going to dive into like the questions that might be in our viewers' head, right? Whether you're watching this live, whether you're listening on a podcast, hit subscribe, hit notify, get notified of our live shows, and invite friends to the Facebook group via the freedomsystem.live. But Lee, when you're calling, do you reach people on the first time? Do you call them 5 or 8, 12 times? How deep do you go? And then let's get back to your story.
I go as many times as I can in that 3 hours. I do 2 90-minute call blocks. My first call block is my low-hanging fruit, which is expireds and FSBOs. And I'm going to go through a block of expireds and FSBOs in that time. And I'm going to call them repeatedly until they pick up. One of the ones I went on yesterday, this custom home, the bigger one. I mean, he's going to list that for like $2.5 million. That property, I called him Sunday and I was not able to reach him. I called him, I think 2 times on Sunday. I wasn't able to reach him.
Do you leave a voicemail?
I do sometimes. And so I use Mojo. Mojo does let me leave a voicemail, and I can preload a custom voicemail in there, or I can leave my own voicemail. That's really on a case by case basis. I don't always leave a voicemail. That's a judgment call. That's really up to you. Some people I know never leave one. Some people leave one every time. It's really up to you. It's easy to do. I mean, I can literally just hit a button. It just says drop message, and I just drop the message. And most of the time I don't get a call back. The good thing is if I do get a call back, I usually get a preview out of it.
Yeah.
If they bother to call me back, then I'm going to preview. But anyway, so I go through in that call block, I go through those leads as many times as I can. 5, 6, 7, 8 times if I need to go through those. And then, and then I'll always go deeper. I'll go into the older ones, and particularly with expireds, as people on this show probably would know, you obviously can't be calling actives. You have to research your data, make sure that you're not going behind the sign, all that type of thing. And so I'm doing that. I have to go through that process as well, but I'm very active. Like when I'm dialing, I'm looking at the properties, I'm looking at what, how it's been listed previously, if it has been, what the remarks are like, if it's sell by owner, what they're saying about their own property, all that kind of thing. The other thing that happened over the last 24 hours is I talked to somebody who has 27 acres out on the peninsula, did a drive by on that, got an idea of that. I sent them my resume, all of my information, and I got an email back from them yesterday. I think they're interested. I'm going to try to list that today.
27 acres on the peninsula is awesome.
It's 380,000, I think, is what they're asking, which is a great price. They're getting no exposure, and it's kind of an outlying area, so the chances of them selling it are relatively low on their own. And I had a good conversation with them. I think that was Sunday, but anyway. So it's just, so yeah. And so in my call blocks, the first call block I'm doing FSBO expired. The second call block, I'm either continuing to do that because that's my best chance of getting as many previews as I can. Because my goal when I get up in the morning, and this is something that really throws people want to focus so much on contacts and real estate conversations. I don't care about that. My goal is to set a preview. If I don't have an appointment for that day, and I go to bed with no appointment done that day, I haven't done my job. So if I can finish the week with 5 previews, that's a win. That's a win. And
a famous quote that I once heard from your coach was, if you spent 40 hours in the office working on real estate and you don't have 5 previews, what were you working on? What are you calling work? The only work that matters is generating previews. Because
my goal is to take one listing per week. That's my goal. And if I can preview five homes a week, I put myself in a position to potentially do that. So that's all that matters. I mean, sure, like I track my numbers and my contacts in Mojo, and I can tell like how many contacts I made yesterday. It actually wasn't that many. I think it was like 10 or something, or maybe 12, conversations, but I set all these previews, so I don't really care. So it's like I have those lead types, and then if I get to the point where I'm bogged down, like I've gone through my new and old expireds, I've potentially even called, new and old FISBOs and expireds, and I just need to change it up. I have absentees in Mojo that I can call as well. I can circle prospect. I have coal information. I can pull data from I can pull data in 3 states. I don't need to. I mean, I can pull data in 7 counties that are surrounding me, and I can circle prospect around. Usually I do it around properties that I've already listed and sold. So I will do that as well, or I can call for rent by owners. I buy data from Mojo. It's $25 a month, and I can get FURBOs, which is people who are renting, their properties, whether it's multi-unit or single family or whatever. And I can call them as well and see if they'd be interested in potentially selling. So those are my lead pillars. The most important thing that I can say about this overall, everyone listening right now, it doesn't matter who you call. If you can set an appointment with a qualified seller who is willing to talk to you about selling their property, then you win. That's it. There's nothing else to know. That's it. So if I sat here all morning,
that's it, folks. Our show's over.
Yep, that's it. Mic drop right there. If I sat here all morning and called absentees right now, like in 20 minutes when I'm going to start dialing again, and I set 5 previews, then I won. That's it. Or I set 1 preview for later today. I won. I did my job. It doesn't matter what lead source you call. That's so hard for people to understand. And new people, they're probably, I bet people are just doing backflips in their head right now. But the awful truth is it doesn't matter where you got the appointment, just that you have one.
Yeah. And the information sources, you can spend 85 hours researching coal versus Red X Vulcan 7 land. You can spend another 75 hours deep diving on which CRM to use, and you can use.
I could sit here and list like all of these. I mean, I think about Mojo, Vulcan 7, Espresso Agent, the Red X, Exact Dial, Kixie, every kind of dialer, every kind of data provider, My Plus Leads, Land Voice, I could sit here and just list them off for like 20 minutes, probably, all these different vendors. And at the end of the day, what matters is, do you have a qualified appointment today? That's all.
Let's unpack that one for a second. I'm going to use all these buzzwords like unpack and digest. So let's dive in for a second on that word qualified, right? Mm-hmm. A qualified seller and a qualified appointment. We learned that one a lot from the Harris rules. And what does qualified mean?
So this honestly, it sounds real daunting. This is a relatively low bar. You reach the person who owns the property. Okay, so they actually own it. They have the ability to sell it if they want to. They are the decision maker, or them and someone else are the decision maker. Those people are willing to meet you at the property and show you the property. They are in a position to sell, meaning they don't owe more than it's worth. It isn't in a distress type of a situation. There isn't like a bank involved who can kill the deal, or an attorney or whatever. They have the ability to sell, and they, hopefully have some motivation to sell. Although usually I'm going to flush that out at the appointment rather than on the call. That's the bar. That's it. So when I say qualified listing appointment, don't freak out. I mean, the 2 people I met with yesterday, I'm pretty sure that they both own the property that I met them at.
Yeah.
And they have the ability to sell it, and both of them are looking to sell.
And the bar on qualified buyer is a little higher, right? Because now we want to make sure that they actually have access to money, right?
Yep.
And they have some motivation to buy.
And realtor, I was talking to a friend of mine last night, a good friend of mine who just got his license here in town, and he's got a buyer that he's working with. And, I was just emphasizing, and he's well aware of it, but realtors, particularly when you're working with a buyer and maybe their friend or somebody who was referred to you or whatever, you're so excited to get out and work with them that you forget to figure out whether or not they can buy or not. Yeah, so that's another thing.
And you're so terrified of them leaving the car that you don't ask them you don't do a buyer interview.
Right.
You don't have them sign a buyer agency agreement.
Don't have them sign a buyer agency, and you don't get them pre-qualified with a lender who you trust.
Right. So here they come to you and they say, well, we've gone to Quicken and we think we're qualified, which, which took like 14 seconds. And then they say, oh, let's go tour. And you tour them for like 3 weeks, right? And you're emailing and you're texting and you're calling, but you haven't signed a buyer agency agreement. And guess what? You have to go on vacation with your spouse or your significant other. You're out of town one weekend. You come back and they're under contract.
It happened to me. It happened to me.
Right? Because you didn't sign a buyer agency agreement, folks. And so, we spent a lot of time talking about listings, but you can work for 30 weeks straight. You can tour 30 homes straight with a buyer and never get paid because they decide not to move to your state. I had a buyer under contract recently, and all of a sudden mom fell and broke her hip and they didn't move to the state, lost, 21 grand. And like, that's can't do anything about that, right? I had them under contract. So even when you have them under contract, buyers aren't guaranteed to close. When you have a listing, eventually, if they're motivated, eventually you're going to close, right? Yeah. And when you control the listings, you control the market, you control the pace, you control the price, you control your income, and you list to last. I can't say it often enough.
It's such a key difference. And, Rick, the thing I think about, this was probably 10 years ago or something, but this is when I was working in Colorado.
Yeah.
I was licensed, I was living in Denver, and I was working a buyer in Fort Collins, and you know how far that is. Yeah. Showing them properties. They were primarily interested in new construction, showed them easily 25, probably different developments, different homes, different options, all these things.
You're into this now for over 100 hours.
Oh, easy. I mean, easy. It's a husband and wife, really nice people, or so I thought. They weren't willing to sign a buyer agency, as I recall. And something happened. It was like 48 hours went by, didn't hear from them, bought a property, out from under me, bought a property, just, and that will happen. That will happen. It's something that can easily happen as an agent. And I wasted all that time and I learned my lesson.
Right. And folks, if you value your time conservatively, if you set your income goals for this year, you reverse engineer that, divide it by 52, say maybe you're going to work 45 weeks realistically because of holidays and vacations and everything else. And then you divide that by 40 hours and you try to get back to like $500 an hour or whatever it is that you want to earn. You reverse engineer it. You look at 100 hours times 500 and you didn't lock that crap down. Like, folks, that's a lot of money out the window, right? 100 hours times 500. You do the math, but you just lost a lot of money. And you set yourself back. Now, in every given day, you're going to have some neutral time, right? Some admin time where you're checking out an appraisal, or you're following up with a lender. I mean, you've got to have some of that basis and that admin time in your day. And you're eventually going to reach a point where you're going to delegate that. But on the outset, you still have to have that productive time and value that time. And if you're wasting that time, when I was an attorney, I used to think, I billed every 6 minutes of my day and what a waste. But when you put a value on your time, you used your time a little more efficiently, right?
Well, and people, especially when they're newer in the business, they err so much on, I have to make sure I have enough admin time. Got to make sure I have, 6 hours of admin time every day, even though you don't even have any deals. And that's the trap people fall into because they feel overwhelmed because they're new and they don't know what they don't know. And then they err on the side of not having enough prospecting time. You have to protect your prospecting time with a vigilance that, it's the most important time of your day.
And it should be a time when you're high energy. It can be different times of day. You can block it up. You can do 60 minutes here, 60 minutes there. You can do 3 hours straight. You can do 2 90-minute blocks, whatever it is. But when you're time blocking, and we're just going to dive into that for just one quick second. Start your week. If you're going to really resist this, start your week with the stuff you like to do. Say, hey, I'm going to have breakfast every morning with my family and dinner every morning with my family, and calendar that out every 15 minutes of your day. Spreadsheet it out. Say, I'm going to take that time. Then you say, you know what? I've got to buy groceries this week. So block out an hour and a half for that. And then hey, I want to go work out. So block out that time, right? And I want to learn something. So block out that time. And I want to go ski. Block out that time. And when you block out your life, your lifestyle, how you want to live, what's going to make you happy and feel like you have all the time in the world for what you want to do. Look at the rest of your week and you've got 40 hours there. It really is quite surprising. And then in that 40 hours, the first thing you put down for work is 3 hours a day for prospecting.
Yeah. And what I find, I mean, if I prospect 3 hours every morning, so 15 hours a week, okay, 3 hours each day, Monday through Friday, everything else takes care of itself. Magically, all of a sudden, somehow my world, everything else that I'm worried about, oh God, what if this happened? No, it takes care of itself. I want to put a little plug in here as well for people who are newer, or if you're an experienced agent and have done a bunch of deals. EXP is offering, our brokerage is offering transaction coordination services now. I just brought them on. I was using a buddy of mine in that role up until recently, and now I'm using EXP's TC. It is like amazing. I mean, I brought this person on. They are essentially running my business. After my files go pending, I'm not touching them, and they're making sure that I'm in compliance and they're getting them closed. It's $250 per transaction side and worth its weight in gold. So take the brain damage out of it, focus on what you're good at, which is getting on the phone or talking to people and having real estate conversations. Let the people that want to do that stuff do it.
Well, and that's going to ensure a better transaction, right? It's going to ensure a smooth transaction. HOA docs get ordered, title gets ordered, water, sewer get transferred, all that stuff, right? And if you figure maybe like, let's say 10 hours a file between going under contract and closing, times $500, which is how you should value your time, that's $5,000 you just earned by investing $250.
Yeah.
And that trade-off, folks, only makes sense if you're actually doing dollar-producing activities during the time you block out, right? So if you hire someone to mow your lawn for $25, if you're just watching TV, you just threw $25 out the window. But if you hire someone to mow your lawn for $25, you spend that hour investing in your business by selling, lead generating, not coming up with your avatar and stuff like that. But it was something you maybe have to do and will do, and we'll go into that in a different show. But if you're actually prospecting, your prospecting time is almost worth $2,000 an hour, right? Like if we boil that $1 million GCI goal down, we divide that by 52 and then divide it by 3, right? Like, or, for 3 hours a day, boil it down to 15 hours a week, whatever. Like if we really go brass tacks, the dollar producing activities in your day are those 3 hours. Mm-hmm. And Lee, I want to do the math on that on a different show. But I mean, I imagine that's going to be like $2,500 an hour, right? Yep. Like your prospecting time. And like you said, well, but you don't understand. They want to do a listing appointment now during my prospecting time. Nope. You're not available. Because guess what? When you called the dentist, when you called the lawyer and said, can I get in at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning? They said, nope, we're booked for 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm. This happened to me yesterday.
They're professionals that bill at $1,000 an hour, folks.
In fact,
you have to treat your business the same way.
The listing I took yesterday, the guy was like, are you sure you can't just meet in the morning? Can't you just come by at 10? I'll be there, and nope, not happening. Not happening. You have to learn to say no. And
that's on a $2.5 million listing, right?
This was on the condo, the listing I took it.
Okay.
But
so that's still a $15,000 commission. I mean, you're bolstering up and saying no to someone who's potentially offering you $15,000.
Right.
How hard is that to do, man? Like someone's going to say, hey, if you come and jump, little pony, jump, right? I'll give you 15 grand. And you're saying, no, I'm going to protect my business. Is that hard to do?
Yeah, it's super hard to do. In the words of Brandon Mulrennan, one of my coaches, if you want to be a top listing agent, you have to have monk-like discipline. And that's part of having monk-like discipline is saying no. You have to learn to say no. You have to run your business. Otherwise, someone else will run it for you. Your buyer that wants to run you all over town without being pre-qualified. Your potential listing appointment that wants you to meet at 9 a.m. on a Wednesday morning. Those you cannot fall into that trap.
No, not at all. And the other thing too, like you say, if you're not running your business, somebody else is. I love that. That's a little clip we can take out of here. Another one is like, if you're not selling on the call, then the client sold you. right? And here you are. I mean, at EXP, we have access to over 60 hours a week of live training from top producing agents. You have access to us on this show. You have access in the Libertas group, which we're a part of, to Tim and Julie Harris and Sean Kokoska and other top coaches around the world, like Orlando Montiel. Like you have enough access at our firm. And even if you're not at our firm, through this show, you have access to everything we know. And you have our text availability, me at 303-589-2320. Lee at 206-419-8303. And if you don't, like, just you have access to skill, right? You to the knowledge that gives you skill. And when you have skill and you're a skilled salesperson, skilled at marketing, skilled at lead generation, and you get on the phone and you let somebody who's never sold a used shoe get on and sell you that they're not going to use you, like, I used a bad analogy, but come on. Like, don't let them sell you. They are unskilled. Bring your A game.
And I would say like 85% of the listings I take, they tell me something on the phone, you know, to the effect of, oh, I'll never list it, or I'll never list it with an agent, or, you know, I've heard it all at this point. Heard it all. I've heard every, you know, and a lot of people, when they hear that, they either wouldn't go on the appointment, or if they went on the appointment, they wouldn't be confident enough to ask for the business.
Right.
Because the person already said they don't want to do that. So why would you even ask them?
Yeah. But 7 no's to a yes, right? You just got to check them off.
Right.
Like, great. They said no to me. I've got one.
Right.
They only need to say no 6 more times and I've got them.
Yeah, exactly.
like a no is a step forward, folks, right? Like if you're in the right mindset, if you're bringing your A+ game, they say no, you're like, that's awesome. Tell me more about that.
Clarity. You get that clarity, and you either have an opportunity to ask for the business again, or you have an opportunity to check them off your list and move to the next prospect.
Yeah.
Okay. So last night, so I want to finish the day out. So, I'm happy. I'm headed home. I had 2 good previews. I get back home, and I'm committed to getting back on the phone last night. So I get back on the phone last night, and I'm gonna break the rules here, Rick. So I'm sorry, but I'm gonna break the rules. So I'm calling other agents, telling them about EXP because I'm so enthusiastic about it. So last night, for probably 2 hours, I called a group of agents in my market, and I actually have a list now. I have a list of every agent in my market. Well, in Washington State, 23,000 agents. And so I'm calling some folks. Actually, these folks who I'm calling are people who showed my listings recently, like in the last 6 months. And so I talked to a bunch of people there and had some great conversations. And I'm staying in the activity, even in the evening time. Like, that's how focused I am right now. I'm trying to, like, if I'm not prospecting for listings, which I did yesterday morning and I'm going to do here in a minute, then I am prospecting. I'm talking to other agents, trying to share this opportunity. People who I know, people who I know in the marketplace, people who a lot of these folks I'd actually met, in passing at showings or whatever. And so, that was what I did last night, like, 5 to 7:30 probably PM. And some of them were shocked, and some of them were happy to hear from me, and some of them laughed at me, and some of them told me I was terrible. So ran the gamut.
And who cares, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's fine. I sent out. I think I probably called maybe 30 or 40. I sent out a group. A bunch requested info. And some of them are going into my follow-up system. I mean, and it's all just activity. And you know what I'm going to do today? It's Groundhog Day, Rick. I'm going to do the exact same thing today as I did yesterday. Whoa!
Yeah. Wow! Get out of town, right? Because it comes down to conversations, folks. And we're going to wrap this up because I want to, with monk-like discipline, we've got to protect our prospecting time. We want to set you off to have a great morning of prospecting, lead generation, and not waste time circling the drain. We want you to actually be rising up and becoming a successful agent. So there's so many more things we can talk about that were brought up in the show. So drop in the comments what you want to hear about tomorrow, right? We're going to start doing this live daily. We started off with just a Monday, Thursday, and we're like, to heck with that. We might as well just talk, share the love every single day, get you fired up, get you motivated. So invite some friends, invite some agents, like us on YouTube, subscribe, notify, hit us up on Facebook, go to thefreedomsystem.live, register, send that link to your friends, thefreedomsystem.live. Quick little registration page that pops you out to Facebook, and we're going to redirect that directly to Facebook. But folks, this is a mastermind to help you, right? We can lead you to water, but we can't make you drink. So I look at my kids all the time. They're 6, 8, and 9. I'm like, I can sit you down with a full plate in front of you, but I cannot make you eat. You have to actually lift the fork to your mouth and decide you want to chew and get some energy. And if you don't, you're going to crash. You're going to get hangry, right? And I see it. They don't eat, they get hangry, and the day's wrecked. Don't do that to yourself in this business. We are giving you food on a plate right now. You had your breakfast, digest it, get out there, and make the most of today.
Awesome, Rick. I'll see you tomorrow.
All right, guys. Talk to you later.